Hey folks, this is Dan with TheWindowDog.com. Today we're going to take a look at how to rescreen a window screen in 3 minutes or less. Now, if you're like most folks in the free world, you have a window screen or 2 or 3 or 5 around your house that have some kind of damage to them. Whether it's a little hole like this one or a tear or the whole thing's missing, you understand what it looks like. Now, this is a real screen from my real house, and I've been looking at this hole for a little while and figured it's time to fix it. So the tools we're going to need today are a screen tool and a utility knife. You can see them both here. The screen tool is relatively important. It would be a lot more difficult to do this job without one. It's a cheap tool. You can get it for $5 or $10 at the local hardware store, Home Depot, or wherever. We'll even have a link on our website under the resources tab where you can order one from Amazon if you want to. But they're easy enough to find locally. Usually it's not a big deal. Just make sure you get at least a basic one. You'll see it looks like it has the same tool on both ends, but actually one of them is different than the other. One of them is a concave wheel where it has a groove in the middle so it caves in, and another one is convex where it's pointy at the end, it's poking out. And it's a distinct difference. You want to make sure you know which one you're using. There's really no need to buy an expensive screen tool. You'll see some for $15 or $20. Don't worry about that. I mean, if you're going to make your living rescreening screens, maybe that's worth it, but otherwise I'd skip it. So step 1 in the process, you lay your screen down on a flat surface and you find the end of the spline. Now the spline is this rubber material that holds the screen into the screen frame. It goes all the way around the perimeter and it's pressed into a groove. So you'll find in one corner is where the spline will end. So you just locate that corner where the end is, and then you'll pick that spline up out of the groove and slowly pull it out. Now, if the spline that's currently in your screen is in good condition, meaning it's not all rotten and falling apart, you just reuse the same piece, save yourself the trouble. If it is falling apart, you'll have to go to the hardware store and buy some new spline. It's not expensive, but it does come in different diameters, so I would suggest bringing a piece of the old one with you so you can feel them and make sure the new one you're buying is the same thickness. As you're pulling the spline out, just be careful with it because it's definitely easier to reuse the old piece than to buy a new one. So if you don't rip it, you can reuse it. So you just pull it gently out and it'll come out all the way around the perimeter of the screen frame. Once you have the spline out, you can take the old screen material out. You lay down the new screen material on top of the old screen frame. Just spread it out evenly across the frame and don't worry too much about lining up the individual lines in the screen to be exactly parallel with the screen frame. You'll never see that anyway once it's completed. When you have the screen laid out over the frame, carefully insert the spline back into the screen frame. You'll need to push it down with some force and you should feel it snap into place. As you press it in, don't roll the roller too fast because it's very easy for it to slip out and it'll slip into the screen and cut the screen material and you'll have to start over again. So slow and steady, just inch along as you get started, and once you get moving you should be able to go a little faster, and just roll and push so the spline snaps into that screen frame and holds the screen nice and firm. As you move around, don't pull the screen too tight, just keep it snug, and the pressure from the spline moving down into the frame will pull it tighter. It'll pull down 1/8 of an inch or maybe 1/4 of an inch, and that change will pull the screen tight. So don't worry about it being super tight before you put it in there, just lay it so it's spread out sort of taut, and as you run the tool around, it'll tighten itself right up. As you see, the corner may not line up. You can see here the corner of the existing spline doesn't quite match with the corner of the screen frame. That's just because it's a little bit tighter now than it was before. It doesn't hurt anything, just leave it that way. You'll never know the difference. And when you get to the end, you may have some excess. As you can see here, there's an extra couple inches of spline. Don't worry about that. You just trim it off with your utility knife and you'll be all set. This is just caused by pulling it a little bit tighter now than it was before, but it won't hurt anything. You'll never know it was that way. So you trim it on both ends so it lines up right in the corner. It doesn't matter much if there's a 1/4 inch gap where the spline doesn't reach all the way to the corner. It won't hurt anything. As long as it's close enough to keep the screen pulled tight so no bugs can get in, you're fine. And then you go around the edge with your utility knife, just scoring the edge of the screen, and the material will cut right off. This fiberglass screen material is very easy to cut, so you just slowly go around the edge, and if there's any strands left connected at the end, just snip them individually, and you'll be all set. You pull the excess screen material away, and there you have it. And step 7 is probably the most important step of all. It's time to sit back and bask in the joy of your successful project. You may want to knock out a couple, you may want to do 1 or 2, and then take a well-deserved break. Either way, you've made a great improvement in your house, and now there's no more bugs getting in, and everybody's going to love you. Hope you find this information helpful, and for more details on any window-related projects, check us out at TheWindowDog.com. Thanks so much.